Hi, and welcome to Dietless Living 360 Degrees, Overcoming Weight Loss Obstacles with me, your host, Katie Gordon. As a weight loss coach, I help my clients overcome their weight loss obstacles in 6 simple steps so that they can lose weight their way and lose weight for life. Because life's full of obstacles. And it's how we deal with our emotional responses to those obstacles that has the greatest impact on our weight, health, and happiness. And how to overcome weight loss obstacles in 6 simple steps provides the framework you need to build your personal health leadership skills so that you can maintain cognitive control through those challenging times and build and maintain your healthy habits. And with that in mind, Dietless Living 360 Degrees brings in special guests to talk about the obstacles they've had to overcome and the strategies that they've used to do it. And today we have the most fascinating Anton Guinea. Anton is an expert in the field of leadership under pressure. He's a best-selling author and a motivational speaker, and he partners with leaders who are under pressure and helps them to create conscious control so that they can create psychologically safe and high-performing teams. Anton nearly lost his life in a workplace accident and has turned that experience into something that others can learn from. Anton's completed a Bachelor of Business in HR, a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and he's currently doing master's level research into the psychology of leading under pressure. Anton's speaking, training, coaching, and consulting programs are based on psychology, neurology, and biology, and they provide leaders with real and relevant strategies to improve their leadership. So welcome to the show, Anton. It's so great having you with us today. Would you like to just take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about what you do and the main way that you work with your clients?
Oh, I'd love to, Katie, and thank you for having me too, by the way. So for our business, Katie, and for me personally, this is the focus and the way that we do that, and great bio, so that really does sort of say it in a sentence. We work with leaders under pressure to help them create conscious control. And how do we do that? We have some 2-day training programs, and they're all on our website. So we do leadership training, we do public speaking training, because that's a big fear for leaders, as you know.
Yes.
And then we also do resilience training, which is really cool.
Yes.
We do a lot of profiling, Katie. So we use DISC, we use team management systems. We now have an emotional intelligence profiling tool that we can use to actually measure people's emotional intelligence.
Wow.
I know. So cool. So if any of your listeners want to reach out, let's put a link below so that they can reach out and understand that. Because as we know, emotional intelligence is such an important skill in life. And then we do obviously the one-on-one stuff, or we work with leaders to consult and sort of help them, build those high-performing, psychologically safe teams. For me, Katie, really what it's about is it's that personal connection with other humans. I rate myself as the true extrovert. So I love humans, and I love talking to humans, and I love being around humans, and I get my energy from interactions with people. And so for me, working with leaders is really, really cool, because they're influencing humans as well. And so the work that we do, we feel really has a ripple effect out into the world. And, when I look at a leader in an organization, I look at, so for example, one manager that we work with has 32 people in his particular team. Now you imagine the work that we do with one person affects 32 others. Now, each one of them might have a significant other. Each one of them might have children. Each one of them might have, will have extended family.
Yeah, it goes out, doesn't it?
Oh, doesn't it?
It's like a sonic wave.
And so hopefully the mission that I'm on is to make sure that leaders have the skills they need to do this, so that they're responding, not reacting to crises. Because at the moment, Katie, we can't just be busy anymore now. Crazy busy. How are you going? And I say to people, how are you going? Crazy busy. I go, all right, how's that different to busy? Is that like now?
How's that working out for you?
Oh, well, yeah. That's a question we ask sometimes. I say, Anton, I'm doing this and I'm not, I keep doing it. Yeah, cool. How's that going for you? So I love that question. So yeah, that's the work that we do. And for me, I guess that background in having a workplace incident, Katie, and the other part of my story. So I've probably got two origin stories, we call them. One is that workplace incident, and the other one is working for crappy leaders.
Yes.
I know. Yes. Some people
all got those stories. Unfortunately.
And they hit you in the heart, those leaders that don't care and that don't understand how much their behavior impacts on other humans.
Which is right with the weight loss and this stuff, right? Because that's how that ripple effect sonic wave goes out.
That's right. And so for you, what you're doing is you're helping people feel good about themselves so that when they show up, they can help other people feel good about themselves. They're
filling their own. Deal with that unconscious leader. And you're helping change the leader.
So that they show up differently. They show up in control.
Yes.
So we've got this great model that we use, Kate. Are you happy for me to talk through some tips and tricks? So if you're a leader out there who's got some of this going on, that you're crazy busy, and seriously, and I know that I sort of take the funny side of that. Everyone is like it. I don't know what's going on. Like everyone's like the economy's changed. So we've gone from a year or two where we were probably like less busy, and now everything's just. So I get it. Leaders are under, and that's what caused this. And for us, it's about control. So if you can just imagine a Venn diagram: control, care factor, courage, with safe space in the middle. Control, care factor, and courage. What that looks like, Katie, is control is around emotional control, situational control, and behavioral control.
Yep.
And for the human species, this emotional control piece, and it's probably more EQ than emotional control, because I just use emotional control as it's easy to say and people get it.
Yes.
Though emotional intelligence is really around that self-recognition, self-management, and social recognition and social management, where we can actually look at another human and go, thinking fast, now what experience are they having?
Yes.
And empathize, or
and not react, which is what we do. React. Oh, that's all about me.
Oh, nice work. We talk about responding, not reacting, and that whole knowing what your triggers are, because some people trigger us without even knowing that they're doing that.
Yes.
And we've all got as humans these emotional triggers, and they might be words, or they might be like
a facial expression,
or the way that or body language.
The subtle ones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, subtle ones, that's right. And it might be the way that someone looked at us when we were in trouble when we were young, and just that slight. My mum had an eyebrow raise, and every time someone raises one eyebrow now, like I feel like I'm in trouble, right?
Yeah. It's all stored in there. It's a big library, isn't it?
We are a walking, talking conglomeration of our conditioning and our beliefs, our values, and our emotional state that just walks around the planet, like with all of our history stored there, that's driving how we should show up, right?
Yep. Every experience we've ever had, good, bad, and indifferent, it's all in there waiting for something to go bing.
Waiting for something to bring it back to the surface.
Yeah.
And so that's the control piece. And then there's the whole care factor piece, which for me is the one. So it's psychological safety, psychological empowerment, and psychological connection.
Gorgeous.
And psych safety, Amy Edmondson, thank you to Amy Edmondson, around the year 2000, probably made it famous, those two words. Daniel Goleman made emotional intelligence. That's this model. So a lot of people want the science or the study behind this model, Katie. And yes, I'm doing some PhD level study. Really, it is to validate this model to make sure it works, so that I can give people that study. If you're looking for three names, Daniel Goleman, Amy Edmondson under the care factor piece, and maybe even Kim Scott with her book Radical Candor. And then down here in the courage piece would be Simon Sinek, starting with why and really having the courage to unpack and to be able to explain, why you do what you do. So the care factor piece first is psych safety. It's about people feeling like they have the ability to contribute, to share their ideas. The definition is taking interpersonal risks. So the challenge is that when we speak up, we might get ridiculed, rejected, or resented by our team members or our leaders. Yeah. And every leader's got a leader. So even the leaders that I coach sometimes aren't willing to speak up because they're worried about what their leader might say.
Yeah. And the ramifications.
Rejection, resentment, or ridicule.
Yes.
And so we don't want that in an organization. And when that is part of an organizational culture or a team culture,
yep,
like that hurts people's hearts when they just want to say something, they don't feel like they can. And then all of a sudden they don't feel valued because they don't feel heard, right? So care factor is about getting to know the humans in your team so that you can work with them to give them a voice so that you can hear them. And psychological empowerment is another. It's sort of more of an academic concept. It hasn't really come into our sort of organizational culture, vernacular or narrative yet. It's around helping people find meaning, helping them find competence.
Yes.
Self-determination, which means what is it you'd like in your role. And then the third one is helping people have an impact.
Yes.
So you imagine if leaders focused on those four areas, meaning, competence, self-determination, and impact. Imagine the teams and the team members, though. And this is what leaders say, and I get this, Katie. They say, Anton, it feels like you're just giving me more work, more actions, like, being emotionally intelligent, like caring for humans.
When I just want to get in and get the work done.
Like I've just got this stuff that I've got to do, and I've got this monthly report, and I've got, I've got the CEO coming down on me, and I've got this going on, and you want me to
pressure.
I don't know. You want me to lead other humans. And I say, look, the other stuff gets easier when you do the people work, right? Because the people take care of process generally.
Yeah.
Yes, it's short-term effort. It's so worth it.
But isn't it the same? Sorry to interrupt, but isn't it the same for anything, right? If you want to make a change, because we all want that change, they want what you're offering as the end result, but they don't know how to implement the time structure to do what you're saying needs to be done to get them there.
Nice work. And great work, because I don't have enough time. So I've just launched a keynote from deficit, which is, an ant-sized, to, I forget the D word that I used, to deliberate. Right. So from deficit to, let's say, deliberate. And deficit means I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy.
And have the resources on.
I don't have enough people. I don't have enough money. Everyone tells me all this stuff. It's a bit like Carl Barron when he says, have you heard that one? He says, he says, people ask you or you ask them how they are, and they'll tell you how they're not. Not bad.
Yes.
Where are you going? Not far.
Yes. I love Carl Barron.
Oh, big fan. And so that's the thing. We've got this deficit mindset, and we really need to be, I'll use the word deliberate. I'm going to come up with a better word, deliberate, and actually say, hold on, you know what? I'm going to make time, because it's about priorities, Katie.
Yes.
What's important to us. I want to leave your leaders or your viewers with one action, and this will change their lives. And don't thank me now, leaders. Don't thank me now until you've tried this. Just do one-on-ones. Yes. Just do one-on-one with your team member. Try that. And a lot of leaders do, and the good leaders do. See, a lot of our work, Katie, is actually with high-performing teams, which is interesting. So, we mostly get calls from high-performing teams, not teams in turmoil.
Yes.
And I don't know whether, probably I've sort of never really unpacked why that is. And the thing that I put it down to is because leaders that have got high-performing teams want to get even higher performing.
And can I say that I think leaders of teams in turmoil, from our previous conversation, they are living in that state of survival, focused in on that one thing. They haven't yet been able to get themselves out of living in that, to see that there's a bigger perspective, and that they need help from people like yourself to come in and help them overcome those obstacles by getting them out of living in that state of survival, so they can then focus on the team.
That's right. And Katie Gordon, putting a comma and an and on the back of that, they're a little bit frightful and fearful to actually ask for help.
Exactly, because
and I get that.
Yes.
And if I had a whiteboard here, here's my imaginary whiteboard, Katie.
I think there used to be one there.
There was 5 minutes ago. It's just so, to me, and I'm really simplistic, so I don't really I try to, and I don't like the words dumb things down. I just try to simplify it in models. Teams only have two parts to them: outputs, relationships. What we do, how we do it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't think we can really make, like, if you want to make it simple, I think we can. Outputs. What do your team get measured on? KPIs. So is it a budget? Is it compliance? Is it, you know, is it safety? You know, we do a lot of work still in the physical safety space. Over this side, so that's outputs. How we do it, relationships. So how is your team connected? How are they communicating? Are they willing to talk to each other? Are they willing to share their ideas and opinions?
Can I interrupt and just say that what I hear that you're doing is, going back to the name of my podcast here, Overcoming the Obstacles, is that's what you're really helping all your leaders to do, because inherent in everything that they're doing is 50 million obstacles. Absolutely. And they all start with their team, and now their team's responding to the tasks at hand, the projects on the go, and the obstacles that inherently come up in every project that they do. That's really what you're doing, isn't it? You really are moving them beyond that by overcoming their own internal obstacles as a leader, and then helping them how to change that within their teams.
Well said, Katie. Beautifully put. And we help leaders remove obstacles for themselves and for their team, so that their teams can shine.
Yeah.
Beautifully put.
Thank you. And speaking of obstacles, as you know, that one of the questions I like to ask my guests is, what are some of the biggest obstacles they've had to overcome? And, or maybe you think of it as a hardship, but something that has happened in your own life that you've had to overcome. And can you remember the strategies that you used?
Yeah. Instead of overcome, can I tell you where this came up from? Yes, and the story behind that? Is that all right?
Yes, please.
And where this model came from. So I was on a site, Katie, I was on an industrial site 2021, where they had a major industrial incident occur. So basically, it's a power station and the station blew up. Right? Wow. So they had this major incident. Now, been all over the news, cut power to Queensland, it was significant. And what happened was, so we had to evacuate the plant. And now when you lose power to the plant, you can't use your printer.
Yes.
So they didn't know who was on site. Now there's been this massive explosion, and is everyone okay? Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
Because we've got no list. So we had to get people together, or the management from that site did. So they had to get people together and tick off names and hope everyone was clear and okay. And finally, the business worked out that it was.
Yeah.
Then they had to get us away from the plant because there was risk of more explosions, and we were in what we call the blast zone.
Yeah.
Then, because we left immediately and urgently, all of our stuff was on site. So imagine your phone, your computer, like we had no personal belongings.
Yep.
Right.
None of those things that we rely on.
And some people were like, wood, I don't have a phone for a day. and it's funny, you know, we all respond differently. Then, of course, our cars were in the car park. We couldn't get our vehicles.
Yeah.
I was out of town. It wasn't my town. And so all I had literally clothes on my back, literally for 24 hours, which
they call that a limit situation, don't they?
Sorry?
They call that a limit situation.
Absolutely. Very much so. And it was really weird to go through that because there was fear at the start. Then it was, I suppose, probably different type of fear or anxiety. Hey, will I get my gear? When will I get back to town? Like, will the plant blow up again? Will my stuff be affected? Like, I know it's weird. It's this tiny little thing, really, in the scheme of life. When you got 300 people with a little bit of anxiety, that emotion grows, right?
Yes, it's like a snowball.
Yeah, and so we all went home that night, not knowing what was going on. The fire system took over, the fire department took over the plant, and we were getting updates through social media, and there was some stuff on the TV by this stage. And then next morning we all congregated, and the CEO flew up from Brisbane and addressed the team of site on 300 or 400 or 500 people, how many there were. And what I loved about the way that particular human addressed the team was it was all about people.
Yes.
Now, I get, Katie, that there will be some people on that site that have a different experience to me. So I get that. So I acknowledge it and say some people would probably say that it wasn't maybe they'd say that it wasn't handled. My experience was that everything was handled really well and really professional because they put people first. The leaders on the site put people first and did this well.
Yeah.
And watching that was how we put the model together. So that model I talked to you before.
Mm-hmm.
And so in answer to your question, what's an experience that I've had and how did I respond to that?
Yes.
That was one that I really like. It was a bit freaky, like it freaked me out a little bit because I'm self-employed. I don't get sick leave, Katie, like you, where if I fall off my bike as a triathlon, guess what? And I can't work. Well, I don't get paid.
Yes.
And so I have a different perspective on it, I guess, to people that do get sick leave and that have full-time jobs. And so it freaked me out a little bit. My wife couldn't get hold of me and my kids were worried. They thought it was like Chernobyl or something like, no one knows. And so there's this whole thing going on. And how did I respond to it? I wanted to because I actually, in the end, when I reflected, it was really well managed in a lot of ways. Yeah, they're probably improvement opportunities. Though I put a model around it, and now I try to teach that model because I've seen it in action. It's not like ethereal. It's not like something made up. I looked at, boom, boom, boom. This person did this person did that. And this is how they did it. And here's an example of what they did.
Yep.
And so I sort of took an experience that was pretty crappy and that really affected a whole lot of humans and still has and still is.
Yep.
But found what I can take out of that and share with other humans and other leaders to help them lead under pressure from the experience that became that site. Does that make sense?
Yes. So, and I really love what you're doing, right? Because what you said about you took something from the practical side, not just in theory, because in theory and practice are the same, but in practice, they're not. So until you do the practice, you don't know how that's all going to work. And because you were in it, you have personal knowledge of how it felt and everything that was going on and what was happening with everybody else. And being in that limit situation, hopefully none of the leaders that you are working with are going to be in that situation. But if they're prepared to be there in such a limit situation, such a high caliber situation, then they can deal with any of the other obstacles and situations that they're going to deal with in their teams and in their business.
Well said. If you can deal with that, you can deal with any event. And we call that a crisis event now. Yes. That really is an absolute crisis event. And it's a business continuity crisis event that could have shut that business down.
Yep.
So, no, well said. And if you can deal with that, you can deal with anything. And so let's work out how to before the crisis event happens, Katie, how do we prepare leaders for those events?
It's exactly right. You've got to practice in advance when it doesn't matter on something, so you're prepared for. I call it practicing for the future.
I love it.
What are you doing today? Because that's where you want to be in the future. What are you doing today? That is the practice that gets you there.
Hey, can I share something with you, Katie? Hot off the press. We've just put in for a grant.
Oh, excellent.
We're going to try and do VR and AI to put people into
those situations.
So we'll give them the experience of being in a situation like that, and then we'll monitor neural, psychological, biological activity and see what happens, and so that we can share that with people and help them. So we'll measure their activity or their brain activity before crisis events, and see, or a crisis event, 2 days worth of training, and then let's do it again and see what's changed based on some training that you've done. So so
can I just say, sorry to interrupt, but you just sparked that's the whole thing, right? Practice before you get there. So if your brain's experienced it and then you're learning the tools, then it's in your neurology how you're going to respond, rather than getting to that point and going, I don't know how I'm going to respond. It's practice. Isn't that what the astronauts do?
Oh, absolutely. Pilots.
Yes, pilots.
So you know the whole drop the helicopter into the pool and get out of the helicopter.
Yep.
You practice the scenario before it becomes a scenario, right?
And you get your nervous system, because that's it. It's your nervous system responding. You got to get your nervous system going, oh, okay. This is normal. Now it's normal. I know what to do.
Well said. And it's funny you should mention that, Katie, because one of the profiling tools that we use is resilience profiling.
Yeah.
And so we talk about the 6 elements of building a high resilient human being. And the definition of resilience is actually advancing despite adversity.
Yes.
Advance despite adversity. And so during the event, the crisis event, in that moment, we're actually not being resilient, we're coping. And that's what you were talking about, being before the event, prepared, so that we can cope. And then this resilience piece is about how we then move forward, because this here can create this whole lot of PTSD or anxiety for the future, or if we don't deal with it, depression. You know, so it's about moving through this crisis event because we've got the skills to deal with it, then advancing despite the adversity and developing resilience, which then will circle back and help us for the next time as well.
Exactly. It's such a nice positive feedback loop, right?
Absolutely.
And do you know what I like, what you just said about resilience? And it might be a conversation for another time, but resilience is about coping, is what you just said. And sometimes that's actually the splinter in my paw when I think about people talking about resilience, because it's about coping. And often people think about coping with things as, I've got an oppressive weight on me and I'm just going to learn how to cart it around. I'm going to cope with that. So the word coping with resilience is often something, but what you're saying is coping by building strategies, right, which is what I do too, building strategies so that you're not coping with it, you're working out how to remove it, move beyond it, and build the strength from it.
And to build the strength from it, to get a learning from it.
Okay. Yes. Do you know, I love the thing about, because one of my pieces in one of my videos, and I say resilience, you know, it's the ability to bounce back, to be able to, you know, be bent out of shape and then get yourself back into shape. And there was a few words in there and I went, and doesn't that sound like all of those words are words of fun? Bounce, spring back, you know, and that's the antidote for, like I've told you, that's the antidote to stress is fun. So getting resilience, using those elements to, I do, because when we're fun, I can get that load off.
That's so well put. So well put. And one of the things that is important, and we have discussed this, is about moving your body. And I just, that's why I have a stand-up desk. I present standing up. I feel like, for me, I do my best work when I'm on my feet because my energy is flowing.
Yep.
My blood's moving and I'm breathing better.
Yep.
I'm oxygenating my frontal lobes. Brain's a big user of oxygen in our body, and it's really, really hard to think. It's really actually even hard to speak, Katie.
Yes.
If we're not breathing properly.
Yes.
We can only breathe on, we can only talk on the out breath.
Yes, I know. I know that well.
So we've got to be able to breathe and talk, which is about thinking fast, talking slow. Even though I probably talk fast, think fast, talk fast.
Well, if you're talking slower than you're thinking, you are lightning.
Absolutely. And so it's how you actually do that. It's how you can use, whether it's an emotional change, whether it's an energetic change, whether it's a physical change, whether it's an oxygenation change, to advance through adversity, to learn, to cope, to deal with, and to bounce back into shape by having some fun. I love that. I wish I had a whiteboard here. Fun, my imaginary whiteboard. Let's have some fun.
Go on, right on the wall. I dare you.
Oh, that's right. I dare you. I can write on the mirror. There's a glass.
Oh,
yeah. And in our sessions, and people don't really, like, they just come along to our 2-day training, and I do all sorts of, like, funny stuff, and I'll make real weird noises and do, funny stuff. And
that's where it's at.
I know they don't realize that for me, that, moving my body around is actually what helps me create an experience for our trainees so that they enjoy being there.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the speaker, it's actually about the audience
and the experience they're having.
Well said. And for leaders, it's not about themselves, it's about the experience their team's having. And so it's about us being able to focus on other human beings and focus on other outcomes and focus on other situations in a way that allows us to deal with them in the best possible way and get the right outcome.
Yep.
And the right outcome usually is taking care of the outputs. It's also about taking care of the relationships as well, because, I see some leaders, they get the outputs right and they just don't get the relationships right. And all of a sudden the outputs are at jeopardy because how we do things, not what we do, how we do things isn't working.
Yep.
If how we do things isn't right, the what we do is in danger.
Which is the same in my world as well, right? Mm-hmm. So people are striving for their goals, their whatever they're doing, their careers, their finances, and their output is great, but how they're doing it is crushing their health. They're overeating, they're not exercising, the stress and all of that. It's the same thing.
Same model.
Way, yeah.
Well said. So yeah, it's really rewarding work, I must admit, seeing leaders go to the next step and actually create high performing teams and actually have the aha moments that really help them step into a different leadership style or a different leadership process or try new things. And the courage piece down on this end of the Venn diagram is to try, tell, and trust. Try new things, try new, I guess, relationship building tools. Trust, try, tell. So tell. A lot of leaders don't even know why they do leadership, Katie, which is interesting. When I asked them why, they said, well, I've never thought about why, because the boss was away and I got her job or his job when they were away.
By default.
Yeah, by default. Or I was a good accountant, or I was a good, nutritionist. So all of a sudden I ended up in the senior role.
And they don't have the leadership training to be there. They know how to do the tool, the job, the task, the activity, whatever it is.
That's
but they
right.
Don't have that leadership training. Yeah.
We had a 30-year leader, Katie, tell us, and it was a him. He didn't know that leadership training was a thing. After being a leader for 30 years, didn't know you could go away and get trained in how to deal with, in people stuff. Yep.
I'm not surprised at all, Anton.
Wow. I think I probably was taken back a little bit because I thought, as a leader, at least you'd know that, there's training. You might not go and get it, or your business might not get it for you.
You're probably not allowed to say, but what kind of a leader would not be aware of that? Is that somebody who's very good at what they do.
Yep. Yeah,
And
potentially.
they just go, it comes so naturally to me.
Mm.
I haven't had to think about where I could go build my skill because I'm getting good responses.
Yeah, and that's the growth mindset thinking.
Yes.
The fixed mindset would be, I'm okay, nothing to see here. You know, I know boats. I've been doing this all my life.
Yep.
You know, who are you, punk, to tell me how to do leadership like I do? Yeah, that's right. And so, you know, which one was it? It was probably a bit of a mix of both. This particular human was a really, really good human. Yeah. He rang us the day before, actually. He rang Alison and said, Alison, do I really need to go to this 2-day training? I've been doing this for a long time now. She said, well, not really. She said, Anton's general response is, he'd rather you're not in the room if you don't want to be there.
Yep.
And Alison said, it might be worth knowing that your business has paid for your course already. So it might be a good move for you to be there. And so he showed up the next day, and that was his first line. He said, man, I don't know why I'm here, because I didn't know this was a thing. And we said, yeah, look, no worries. Let's see if you can get some value while you're here, and let's see if we can work with you and help you out and expand your mind a little bit. Anecdotally, so we've heard from his team and from his site that he went back to site and said, wow, you know, like, so much information out there on the planet that could help me be a better leader. So we
saw the shutters roll up.
That's right. Ooh, had some aha moments, and was such a good trainee, such a great human, and you know, another great human that we get to deal with and to get to work with. So the universe,
out the sonic waves.
That's it. So yes.
Thanks for sharing all of that, Anton. So I have a couple more questions before we get to our end bit.
Go.
So can you tell me of a great risk that you've taken in your life and why you took it?
Well, so I got blown up in a switchboard. So I was nearly killed at work when I was a young electrical worker. And I took a risk so the risk that I took was rushing a job. I stuck a steel ruler on a switchboard to measure. It got in behind the main switch, which was isolated, and it blew up, and I got 2nd-degree burns and ended up in a burns unit with my skin being peeled off every day for about 5 weeks, and couldn't wipe my backside because my hands were, and I do a lot of speaking in industry around that. Yes, my hands aren't scarred. Woo! Good care in the burns unit. Katie Gordon, just between you and I. No one wipes your bum quite like you do. Fun fact.
Fun fact. Something you always want to be able to do.
That's right. You always want to be able to wipe your own backside. Trust me when I tell you. So I always miss a bit, Katie. True story. And you know,
it reminds me of a joke, and I'm not going to share it here because I'm not sure it's appropriate, but later off screen I'll share.
Right. Good. Okay, do that. And so, so the risk that I took landed me in intensive care, landed me in the burns unit, landed me in a toilet cubicle that I couldn't operate by myself, which was interesting. And so why did I take that risk? You know, and I spent 10 years, and I really feel like there was times when I had some PTSD stuff going on, like that whole not advancing through to adversity and not dealing with the boom event, not coming out stronger, coming out less strong and bitter, twisted, pissed off with the world.
Yeah.
Why me?
A lot of pain.
There was. And why me? Why do I have to go through this whole got a facelift at 21? That was interesting, because all the skin, some of the skin was blown off my face, and then the rest had to be forcibly removed. So like, it's all a bit there. If any of your listeners, if any of you have ever been to burns unit, you'll get this, because burns units are horrible places, and you never forget the smell of burning flesh. You never forget the screams of young males, and they are young males, because that's who ends up in the burns unit. Young males from the bush doing stupid, can I say shit, Kate?
Yes, you can.
Stupid shit.
And boys like to blow up stuff and play with rifles and
fire. Camping, fuel on fire,
putting things in fires.
So why did I do that? Because I had a different priority in the moment than my safety. I had a different priority, which was rushing to get a job done, which was impressing someone.
Yes.
You know, give yourself a little. because I was out of work at the time and I wanted to get a job on that site, and which I never did. They didn't think that was quite cool, blowing up their whole joint. So yeah, did you ask me the question? So why did I take the risk and what did I learn?
Yeah.
I learned out of it that I had to take responsibility for my behavior, and that if I didn't put my personal safety first when I'm at home, when I'm driving, when I'm demonstrating to my children how to do things around the house, when I'm at work, if safety is something that needs to be at, front of mind a lot of the time, especially when they're in that decision-making moment. Do I pull out in front of this truck on the highway? Do I, how am I going to, grind at home? Do I really need those safety glasses?
Do I need to be fiddling with that thing on the seat next to me while I'm driving? That fell off the seat on the floor. Can I wait?
Exactly. Those they talk about in driving micro sleep. I think they're micro decisions that we make. I think they're more in the moment. We make these priority decisions, and what's more important? Is it rushing? Is it getting that thing? Is it taking a phone call while you're driving, or is it your own personal safety? And so I really spent a lot of time reflecting on that, and then got into safety, and then got into safety leadership out of that with all the thinking that I was doing, and wrote a book on it in the end.
This is your book, your best-selling.
You have got some of my books, and I sort of use in my books. This was the very first one. There were some photos in here too that I could share with your audiences. But if your listeners, Katie, are out there, if they'd like a soft or a hard copy of these books, please, maybe we can put a link to that down below as well.
I will buy one of your books. I'd love to read it.
Oh, Katie, they're yours. Oh, yours. I'll send them to you. We'll connect offline. Send me your address and I'll get you some down. Sorry, I haven't yet.
Those micro decisions, you're right. My dad, God bless him, not the worst driving record ever. He drove all his life. He used to be an interstate truck driver, and he just on the road his whole life. So he said by default he's made a lot more mistakes than the average person, but simply because he was on the road more. And he went and taught defensive driving because he wanted to share that knowledge of what not to do with young drivers, like they were classes for young boys mostly. But he always shared stuff with me, every time we were driving, especially, and he taught me to drive. And so many things about, where you're looking when cars and trucks are going past, and, I'd be fiddling with something. Goes, do you really need to be doing that now? Think about the consequences, and, just that teaching in the moment of the decision that you're making. And that's when we're living in that part of ourself, isn't it? Where it's just in the moment, that when what you're doing and teaching as well is you've got to come back from that to this to get this other perspectives.
Absolutely. Well said. And that's the trick, is to pull yourself out of what potentially is a high risk activity and a high consequence activity in the moment that'll only take a second. But could affect you for the rest of your life. And there's some thinking that goes on in the moment where you say, hey, is this worth it, or what could go wrong, or what if? And that's a trained response. What if? And so it's, for me, it was really around after that incident, unpacking why it happened, and I had to take responsibility because apparently the switchboard was faulty and it shouldn't have blown up and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, I stuck a steel ruler in it. So, you've sort of got to step back and say, hey, it was my fault, and I won't do stupid stuff again. And I haven't done anything, well, maybe I have. Anyway, that's probably a broad statement, but certainly at work, I haven't done anything that has really had the risk of such a high consequence like that. So that was really probably my worst decision in my working career.
As my friend lovely Catherine, I often say, she always says, so very few of us are saints, right? So we know but we will always have what I call habit relapse, which is you'll always make those moments, but you'll be so aware of it, like so faster before it turns into anything else.
That's right. And sometimes it's that experience that I've got because I am more aware. My awareness is what we call heightened.
Yeah.
And people have actually said that to me in the past. They said, man, you're the safety person. And, you've had this incident. You've felt the pain of the burns. How do you expect us to work safely? We haven't felt the pain of the, we haven't experienced what you've experienced. I say, don't wait. I say, so much better to not get injured than to learn from the injury. Actually, I was in Sydney this week, actually, speaking to a great construction company. Thanks, Richie, for having me, if you're listening to this ever. And I actually got the question from a guy called Elias down the back, and he said, if you had your time again, would you still have the incident? Because it's, of all the stuff you've done since then. I said, no, I wouldn't have the incident. If I had my time again, I would not, I'd do something different. I'd find, maybe I'd still be doing this, who knows? Yeah. Probably not. But, the ripple effect of all of that, mum and dad got in, what they saw, brothers, it's just everything. And so, if I and it was interesting, it was a sliding doors moment, this question. And I thought, you know what? A lot of people say, yeah, it was great because it may help me become the person I have. And yeah, there's so many positives out of it. At the end of the day, if I could go back in time, I'd probably change it, and I probably wouldn't have it happen again. Well, I know, which is a weird thing to think about, but
well, it's not right, because I often hear that people say, that same question to people with, whatever injuries they've had or consequences of things in life. Would you change that? And they go, oh no, without that, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, right.
But I'm like you. I'd be willing to see what was on the other side of not having that.
Absolutely.
Because if that was so arduous and the burns, I could not imagine anything more hideous.
Yeah, and it was pretty painful. So, so that's probably what I learned out of that worst situation. Yeah.
Cool. So tell me, Anton, our last two questions before we go. What do you do for fun?
Oh, Katie, where have you been all my life? Triathlon.
How many a year do you do?
Oh, 1,000. 1,000. No, we probably wouldn't go 4 or 6, except in winter because it's freezing at the moment. There's not many events. When was Cairns? Probably 6 weeks ago. So I do what we call half Ironman distance events and Olympic distance events, not too many short ones, and I don't do the full Ironman events because they're just a bit too long and they hurt too much. So a full day at the office. And so for me, triathlon is just that team sport where I get to connect with other humans again, and I get to stay fit, which is really cool. And Mrs. G and I get to do a lot of traveling together. So we travel the world. I represent our country, which is pretty special.
Wow.
Back to represent our country again in 2 years' time in Taupo in New Zealand, or Taupo as they call it over there.
Yep.
And in 6 weeks' time, I'm going to try and qualify for next year's World Championships in Finland. So go.
Oh, cool.
Well, I know, see the Northern Lights, go and do the green and gold thing again. So, so that's what I do for fun. I'm usually up fairly early, like yesterday morning, Friday's rest day, but yesterday morning was 3:15 on the bike, and I didn't get back in time from work from Rocky for a swim in the afternoon, but I'm twice a day, an hour or two in the morning and evening. And
you can't miss a day, really, the training, can you? You notice it straight away.
100%. So you're going to be so consistent all year round, which is hard, eh? Like, it's mentally draining, Katie, to be in the same vein. People will ask, where do you get your energy from? And I just say, from triathlon. I just, I'm always, because the
hardest thing you're going to do all day, start.
And, when you can run 20K or 21K, well, we run that every Sunday morning, for fun. And, what that takes mentally. I say to anyone out there, I say to leaders, next time you see triathlon on someone's resume or Ironman, hire them.
Yeah. They've got the mental agility to do it.
And the mental strength to get through anything, right? So
yes, I want to be back on the podcast on another day, because I've had a few people on who do ultra events and ultra sports and all sorts of, and I love that, and I like to pick around in there, and I don't have time to do that with you today, but I do want to, so I'll have you back.
let's pick around in there, Katie.
Yeah, I like to fossick around and what's going on inside that grey matter.
We'll see what comes out of it. Might be a bit interesting.
So quickly, tell me what you do for relaxation.
Read, meditate, shop. I like just going to the shops with Mrs. G. She's a shopper, so I float around with Mrs. G.
Browsing.
Sorry?
You like the browsing?
Yeah.
Buying?
Yeah, love the browsing. I don't buy, probably don't buy as much as she does.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of audiobook a lot. Actually, Audible would probably be the main thing I do.
Love it.
Do meditation a couple of times a week in here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like can't say every day because it's not. It's most work days.
Yeah.
And for anyone that wants to get started, I simply go into Google and type in the words 10 minutes guided meditation and go to videos and just click one and just sit there and follow the process. Like, it's so easy. And I love that process as well. Read, audiobook, meditate, go shopping. It's probably the things that I do for, well, meditation is not really for fun. That's just for my well-being.
Well, and well-being is fun, right?
Oh, it can be. That's true too. That's true. My favorite one, Katie. So I'll show you here, and I know we're going over time now, but my favorite one, and this is a tip for young players, how easy it is. Just go there and go 10-minute guided. It'll come up because I search for it most days. 10-minute guided meditation.
Yeah.
The one that I love is this one here. It's Daily Calm.
Oh yeah.
It's
Daily
just
Calm.
Daily Calm. It's probably the best, easiest. So I've done a few of the other ones. So I've tried those, but I just keep coming back to Daily Calm because Daily Calm is just so easy to follow. And this particular female just talks you through how to breathe, how to sit, and just, I quite like it. So for anyone out there, meditation is a bit of a big deal at the moment. People are talking about it a lot. And I know it still freaks people out. Anton, I can't sit still for 10 minutes. You can.
and essential too, getting a handle on your responses to life, because you've got to be able to stop yourself.
Stay calm. And would you believe, Katie, that there's some studies out now that show that meditation changes your brain. It changes your neurology.
Yeah. Do you follow Dr. Joe Dispenza?
No, I should though.
Yes, I will give you everybody, anyone out there, doing a lot on YouTube, but he originally, when I first heard of him, it was in 2004 from the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? And Joe's gone on to, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's gone on to, teach it over, went to his retreat on the Sunshine Coast. He's an American, really good, well worth looking him up on YouTube. And
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, Anton, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. And unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye. So we will put all your details up at the end of the video, and people will be able to connect with you. They'll be able to buy your book. And it's just been such a pleasure. So thank you very much. And to everybody who's watching, thank you so much. If something Anton has shared today, or myself, that's resonated with you or inspired you, please do give us a like, leave us a comment, and we will see you in the next video. In the meantime, here's to your health and happiness so you can love what you create. Bye for now.
Thanks, Katie.